Japheth, the hidden son of Noah whose miraculous legacy fulfilled God's plan for nations. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, great turmoil shrouded the earth. The heavens had poured forth their fury, cleansing the world of its wretchedness through the waters of the great flood. Amidst this divine renewal stood Japheth, the often overlooked son of Noah, gazing upon the remnants of a world reborn. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and wood, echoed with the silence of a slate wiped clean, yet within him stirred an unshakable weight. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders as Japheth and his brothers, Shem and Ham, stepped from the ark. They were greeted by a strange quietude that contrasted sharply with the chaos that had enveloped their past. But beneath the serenity, Ham's mocking laughter pierced the stillness, a cruel testament to his defiance of his father. Noah, weary from the burden of survival and divine command, faltered under the weight of Ham's disrespect. In that moment, a curse was spoken, a divine declaration that would echo through generations, casting him alongside the shadows while marking Shem and Japheth for blessings yet to unfold. Days turned to nights, and Japheth felt the stirring of divine purpose within him. The ark would still lay ripe for crafting, and the soil thrummed with the promise of new life. With audacious faith, he set forth, following the calling of God to establish nations that would honor him. Each step took him further away from the altar of despair and towards the realms of possibility, as laughter and camaraderie intertwined under the blessings of a new dawn. Yet, as Japheth journeyed, remnants of ancient civilizations haunted the lands. The flood had eradicated many, yet others remained, grappling with insecurities and the anarchy that now threatened the fragile rebirth of the earth. Rival clans emerged, embattled against one another, their thirst for power igniting a fire of conflict where peace should reign. Deep within, Japheth recalled the promise tucked away in the recesses of his heart, a covenant not just for him, but for all who believed. One fateful night beneath a canopy of stars, with the tension of the world colliding within his soul, Japheth knelt before the Lord in earnest prayer. In that sacred moment, the heavens parted, and he felt the divine presence enveloping him, heavy yet liberating. "Japheth, you are to be a builder," a whisper echoed, "a father of many nations. Through you I shall restore the earth. Fear not the chaos around you, for I am with you." Strengthened by this vision, Japheth emerged a leader, rallying the weary clans towards reconciliation. The hearts of the downtrodden longed for his guidance, and as he preached love and unity, a new world began to sprout, a flourishing tapestry woven with faith, where communities would rise to honor the Creator. But lurking beneath the burgeoning peace was dark envy, represented by a rival clan leader whose desires were sullied with greed. Stealthily, he plotted to shatter the fragile tranquility Japheth had forged, sowing division among the tribes. Amidst the whispers of impending doom, Japheth stood firm, his heart a steadfast reflection of divine purpose, grappling with how to fulfill God's vision amidst rising turmoil. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As he stood upon the precipice of destiny, the fury of opposition gathered on the horizon, waiting to unleash chaos upon the promise of peace. Japheth's heart, once filled with hope and divine calling, now wrestled with uncertainty. Would he have the strength to overcome those who sought to undo the work that had begun? The answers remained hidden, a divine purpose yearning to be revealed, binding the destinies of nations in its miraculous embrace. As dawn broke over the weary earth, Japheth awoke, his heart heavy with the weight of his calling. The sun's rays bathed the land, illuminating both the beauty of creation and the shadows of despair lurking in hidden corners. Japheth rose, resolved that his purpose was not merely to establish nations, but to be a beacon of hope amid the encroaching darkness. He gathered the chiefs of the clans, inviting them to assemble. As they stood before him, A torrent of conflicting voices filled the air, each one representing fears, desires, and old grudges that sought to tear them apart. Japheth lifted his hands, calling for silence, and the winds of contention stilled. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his voice steady but gentle, "the Lord has shown me that we are called not to division but to unity. These lands are ours to share, a gift from the Almighty who has preserved us. We are bound not by blood alone but by a covenant of peace promised to our forefather Noah. Let us extend our hands to one another and be rebuilders of this world." But not all hearts were touched by his words. Among them stood Kedar, the rival leader, whose eyes burned with bitterness. He stepped forward, a fire ignited within him. "Japheth, you may speak of peace, but the rightful power belongs to those who seize it. What promises have you that will hold against my blade? The strong shall inherit, not the meek." A murmur swept through the assembly, fear mingling with doubt. Japheth, sensing the unrest, turned a vow to God as promise. "I ask you, Kedar, what will become of the children of our people? Will we spill blood and shatter the fragile bond of kinship? For if we forget our unity, we are but wild beasts in shattered lands." The tension hung like a storm cloud, each onlooker weighing the gravity of a choice light or darkness. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the assembly, swirling dust around them as if the heavens themselves listened. It was then that Japheth felt it, a conviction unfurling within him. He raised his eyes to the skies. "Let a sign be given," he proclaimed, his faith fortifying his spirit. "If the Lord stands with me, let there be a sign among us. And if our people choose strife, let the earth yield no harvest, and may the skies withdraw their rain." As the final words left his lips, the land fell silent. Time hung suspended, awaiting a response from the heavens, and the assembly held their breath in anticipation. Then, far in the distance, a thunderclap resonated, and dark clouds began to swirl ominously, as if replying to Japheth's call. Kedar's face drained of color, yet within him brewed a fierce indignation. "This is but a trick," he shouted defiantly, clenching his fists. But the hearts of many began to sway. Uncertainty fueled by Japheth's courageous stand ignited hope, compelling them to choose the path of faith. As the people murmured and shifted, Japheth continued, "God has promised to bless the nations through us. Do we not hear his word echoing in our souls? He desires our unity, our love, and our willingness to forge a future unlike the past. Silencing the cries of hatred, let us rise together." The storm rumbled as if resonating with the awakening of their faith. And as Japheth extended his hand to Kedar, inviting him onto a path of reconciliation, he sensed the turning of tides. The mighty promise of nations lay not solely upon his shoulders, but within the hearts of those willing to believe. Yet, as this moment unfolded, the envy within Kedar festered, brewing a deeper conspiracy that would soon come to reveal itself. What began as a plea for peace could spiral into a tempest, ensnaring Japheth and all who rallied under his banner. The clouds gathered heavier on the horizon, darkening the skies even as hope blossomed among the clans. Could Japheth's faith withstand the storm yet to come? The struggle for nations teetered upon a knife's edge. The unseen hands of the divine were busy aligning the threads of fate, weaving a tapestry rich with promise and peril. The time had come. The echoes of history murmured, drawing closer to whispers yet unheard. Would Japheth fulfill his destiny, or would chaos reign, ensnared by the enemy hidden in shadows? For even as a flicker of light emerged from trembling hearts, the ultimate plan of God remained shrouded in divine mystery. As the thunder rolled in the distance, a tension filled the air, palpable and electric, as the assembly of clans held their breath. Japheth stood resolute, emboldened by the heavy presence of God that enveloped him like a cloak woven from faith and conviction. He scanned the faces of the gathered, each reflecting fear, hope, doubt, and courage, an intricate tapestry of humanity standing upon the cusp of destiny. "Come now, let us cast our burdens upon the Lord," he urged, his voice rising above the growing winds, "for the assurance of his promise sustains us. Look beyond what is visible. Our God is a God of order, He shall not abandon those who seek peace and tread the path of righteousness. He spoke with fervor, each word a hammer striking the anvil, ringing with truth. But Kedar's descent loomed like a dark cloud, casting shadows over the hearts that yearned for unity. Your words may soothe the hearts of the simple, Japheth, but the strong do not yield to sentiment. What of the might of our ancestors? Surely the sword has more promise than your distant God. What will he do for us if we lay down our arms? At this provocation, Japheth felt the stirrings of righteous anger rise within him. It is not the might of the sword that grants us victory, Kedar, but the grace of the Almighty. Have we not seen kingdoms rise and fall? David, a shepherd, became king not by bloodshed but by faith in the one who fights for us. My brothers and sisters, take heed. He has called us to be the light of the nations, not to wield the shadows. Then the heavens began to speak in earnest. A low rumble echoed through the air, as the winds shifted direction, swirling around them with increasing ferocity. The assembly's attention was drawn skyward, their hopes and fears entwined in that cosmic moment. The clouds thickened, darkening the day, as lightning lit the sky with brilliant flashes, illuminating a path unseen. Before it faded back into ominous shadows from the back of the assembly, a voice rose, soft yet firm. Is it too late to seek the Lord? Shall we not be the salt of the earth? It was Miriah, a wise woman among them, her eyes shimmering with compassion. Her words were like balm, soothing the frayed edges of their debate. Gritting his teeth, Kedar cast a venomous glance at her. Yet the murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the crowd. Perhaps our strength is in our unity, Miriah continued, emboldened by the stirrings of faith. Shall we not intermingle our hearts and forge a destiny that befits the children of Noah, who chose to create anew after the deluge? The voices began to rally. Let us seek the Lord together and pray for his guidance. Japheth seized the moment. Then let us pray for the Lord's mercy upon us and seek his wisdom to guide our steps. Gather your families, your people, and raise your voices to the heavens. For today we stand at a crossroads. Will we forge a new legacy based in love, or allow our hearts to harden like stone? With that, they fell to their knees, the earth absorbing their cries, a chorus of desperation and hope rising to the skies. Each heart beat like a drum resonating with the promise of redemption. But amidst the rising faith, Kedar seethed, his mind racing with dark machinations that twisted deeper within him like roots seeking moisture in barren ground. Silent in the shadows, he plotted, envisioning ways to undermine Japheth and reclaim dominion over what he perceived as his rightful heritage. As the assembly prayed, a fiery resolve lit Japheth's heart. We shall be peacemakers. His voice rang out, compelling others to join him in rejecting discord. Instinctively, he felt the deep truth echo within the marrow of his bones, solidifying into a promise. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Yet unbeknownst to them all, beyond their gathered ranks, a figment of fate danced in the shadows, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. How would the enemy act in darkness? And what would become of their covenant? The stirring waters of prophecy moved closer, as the unseen work of the Sovereign One continued to weave an intricate plan, a plan that would shape the very fabric of nations. The day drew near. The climactic intertwining of conflict and divine purpose loomed on the horizon. The legacy promised to the sons of Noah awaited them, but would they embrace it, or lose themselves in the depths of division? The path remained shrouded, awaiting revelation and fraught with peril, as they dared to step into the unfolding narrative of God's relentless and mysterious design. As the fervent pleas of the assembly ascended toward the heavens, a tangible stillness fell upon the land, as if all creation held its breath in anticipation of the Lord's response. Japheth, kneeling among his kin, felt an overwhelming sense of unity binding their hearts. His spirit soared with the realization that they were more than just descendants of Noah. They were to be conduits of divine purpose, capable of shaping the destinies of the nations like clay in the hands of the potter. Suddenly, a flash of lightning split the sky, revealing a celestial figure within the storm clouds. It was as though heaven itself had reached down to intervene. A voice like thunder rolled across the assembly, echoing the very words of God. "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Isaiah 41 verse 10. Faith surged within the hearts of those gathered as they lifted their voices once more, proclaiming praises to the Almighty. Japheth glanced at Kedar, whose once proud visage was now marred by uncertainty. In this sacred moment, there was no room for division. All barriers crumbled before the might of their Creator. Suddenly, Moriah rose to her feet, emboldened by the divine encounter. "Brothers and sisters," she said, her eyes shining like stars in the heavens, "the Lord has spoken. He is for us, not against us. Let us set aside our differences and unite under His banner. For the plans He has for us are filled with hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. The assembly roared with approval, their voices intertwining into a harmonious melody of faith. Recognizing their consensus, Japheth turned to Kedar, his heart filled with compassion rather than resentment. "Kedar, will you not join us? Lay down your sword and embrace the promise of peace. For the path set before us has the power to heal the scars of our forefathers' divisions." But Kedar's heart remained hardened. He felt the chains of pride weigh heavy upon him, binding him to his desire for power. "You speak of peace, Japheth," he sneered, "but peace will not feed us when the enemies of our land come to claim what is ours." At that moment, a great shadow loomed over them. A troop of warriors emerged from the horizon, their banners flying ominously against the storm-laden sky. The assembly gasped, their faith soon challenged by the reality of approaching conflict. Kedar's eyes sparkled with darkened glee, sensing the tide might turn in his favor. "Look, the proof of our turmoil," Kedar called, rallying the fearful among them. "Will you trust in this unseen God when battle lies before our gates? We must defend our legacy." Yet, from within the gathering, voices of resolution resounded. "Our legacy is not forged in blood, but in faith," a young father declared, clutching his child close. "Let us not succumb to fear, for our God shall be our shield." Japheth raised his hand, and like a beacon, it called the assembly towards love, toward a faith unshakable. "We shall rise, not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers," he proclaimed, tears cascading down his cheeks. "For we wrestle not against the seen, but the unseen forces that sow division. Let us take our stand in the name of the Lord of hosts." As the assembly began to gather their resolve, Kedar stood alone, watching their transformation with a darkening heart. But in the expanse of creation, a quiet whisper began to stir a promise yet unfulfilled. Little did they know that beyond the storm, a divine orchestration unfolded. A transformation greater than themselves was drawing near. The nations awaited a revelation that would echo through generations. And thus, as the warriors approached and the foundation of their faith trembled, a spark ignited within the assembly that would redefine the legacy of Noah's line. The battle was not merely before them. It was woven into the very fabric of God's eternal plan. What would they choose in the moments to come? Would they be vessels of His peace, or would they allow fear to reign? The answer hung in the balance, beckoning them deeper into the mystery of God's sovereign will. The winds howled as the shadows of the warriors drew closer, their armor clanking like the sound of chilling forebodings. Japheth, standing resolute among his bold assembly, fixed his gaze towards the advancing host. "Brothers and sisters," he cried, "our fight is not against men, but against the very powers of darkness that seek to ensnare our hearts with fear." Suddenly, the voice of Moriah pierced the tumult. "Let us remember the covenant our God made with Noah. He promised never to flood the earth again, and He is our refuge in this storm. He shall deliver us." Encouraged by her faith, the assembly began to chant, their voices rising like incense before the Lord. "Our faith is our shield. Our trust is our sword. We will not falter." Kedar, witnessing their fervor, felt a pang of doubt gnawing at the edges of his hardened resolve. Yet, the shadow of pride whispered deceitfully, urging him to cling to his weapon and authority. With clenched fists, he turned to the warriors, addressing them with a fierce glare. "They are but sheep, led to the slaughter. But we are the lions. Fight to claim what is ours." As the front line of warriors drew near, a heavy air of tension shrouded the assembly. Japheth, sensing the importance of the moment, fell to his knees, imploring the Almighty for divine intervention. "O Lord, do not abandon us in our time of need. You are our strength. You are our deliverer. Show us your power once more." And as if in response, the ground trembled slightly, a subtle reminder of God's presence among them. A group of elderly sages, remnants of the past, stepped forward, their eyes glimmering with a wisdom that transcended time. "Japheth," one elder spoke, his voice steady, "while the world may see us as weak, we are not of this world. The Lord uses the meek to confound the mighty. As it is written, the battle is the Lord's." 1 Samuel 17 verse 47. The assembly felt a renewed vigor as the elder's proclamation washed over them. Faith ignited in the hearts of men and women, casting off the chains of fear. "Let us dance with courage in the face of adversity," another elder called, lifting his staff high. "For our God will part the waters of chaos, as he has done before." With the rallying cries echoing throughout the land, the assembly began to gather stones from the earth, signs of their covenant with God transformed into weapons of faith. Each stone was not merely a rock. It was a testimony of their unity and reliance on the Lord. Just then, a rumbling thunder echoed across the heavens, and the sky darkened further, emboldening their resolve. From among the assembly, a child stepped forward, a mere lamb among lions, and lifted a small stone as if it were the mightiest of weapons. "The God of my father is with us," he declared, innocence and authority intertwined in his voice. As Kedar observed this, a flicker of fear brushed against his heart. Could it be that the strength of the Almighty truly rested upon these simple people? As the warriors drew closer, he stood torn between the hollowness of pride and the unbroken unity of faith before him. The clash was imminent, yet amid the approaching darkness, a glimmer of hope emerged. The Lord was orchestrating a revelation that would alter the fabric of their existence. For this battle was not simply for survival. It was the unveiling of a greater destiny, a tapestry woven from threads of courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding promises of the Most High. And so, as both sides prepared for the inevitable confrontation, the assembly clung to the truth of God's word. "He is our stronghold, our deliverer," they proclaimed in unison. What lay ahead was a cosmic confrontation. An affirmation of God's purpose for his people was about to unfold. Would they stand firm upon the promises woven into their hearts, or would they falter in the face of darkness? The fates of nations hung in the balance, waiting to see how God would reveal his sovereign plan through this courageous stand. The dawn of a new legacy was about to break, its light shrouded in the mystery of divine providence. As the air filled with the fervent cries of the assembly, the ground shook more violently, as if the earth itself were responding to the prayers of Japheth and his people. The shadow cast by the advancing warriors deepened, a dark cloud foreboding the arrival of battle. But with every heartbeat, the faith within the assembly grew, illuminating their spirits even amidst the turmoil. "Look," shouted Moriah, pointing towards the distant horizon, where flashes of lightning danced like divine messengers across the sky. "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the earth responds with its might. Our God is not silent in our struggle." The other warriors, witnessing this display in the cosmos, felt a tremor of unease. Kedar, however, bolstered by bitterness, raised his sword to the sky and shouted a challenge. "Let them tremble. Our might stands firmly upon flesh and steel. This day shall be ours." Japheth, rising from his knees, raised his hands high. "Let not your hearts be troubled. The great I Am fights for us." As our forefather Moses stood before Pharaoh, with his faith anchored in the Lord's promises, so too do we stand now. "Behold, for he shall deliver us." The words of Japheth pierced the gathering gloom, igniting a fire of courage within those who dared believe. Just as Gideon had faced the Midianites with a mere handful, so too did Japheth spur his people onward, each one tightening their grip on the stones of covenant, symbols of their faith in God's word. Then, in a moment of divine stillness, silence swept across the land. The winds ceased their howling, and even the warriors halted in confusion. It was as if the fabric of reality held its breath. In that sacred pause, the voices of the elderly sages resonated like echoes of ancient truths. Be still and know that He is God. They chimed, their voices weaving together as a chorus of harmony, embodying the wisdom of Proverbs 3:5-6. With renewed clarity, the assembly seized the moment, their voices blending into a single chant, lifting their gaze toward the heavens. We trust in you, O Lord. You will make our paths straight. In that very instant, a brilliant beam of light broke through the stormy heavens, illuminating the valley where they stood. It fell upon the child with the stone, who remained steadfast, heart open to the calling of God. God has not given us a spirit of fear but of power and of love and of a sound mind. He declared, the innocence of his youth magnifying the truth of his declaration, echoing the promise from 2 Timothy 1-7. As the intensity of divine light enveloped the assembly, they felt a surge of strength and clarity, each member of the gathering understanding they were not alone. Heaven itself bore witness to their plight. And then, as the darkness began to close in once more, a voice resonated deep within the hearts of the faithful assembly, a whisper both comforting and powerful. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. Isaiah 41:10. In that deep moment of faith, under the divine gaze, the assembly took their places as brave warriors of light, their stones poised, hearts set on the promises of God. Their battle was not just against flesh and blood. It was against the rulers, the powers, and the spiritual forces of evil. The lines were drawn, the moment prepared as the enemies surged forward, swords raised. Japheth's heart beat a fervent rhythm of faith. They would fight for their very identity, for the covenant that had been made, and for the generations yet to come. From the shadows, Kedar watched, wrestling within the tumult of his own heart, a divine tug pulling him between destiny and defiance. As the sky roared with thunder and the earth shook beneath their feet, it was a prelude to a revelation that would echo through the ages. This battle was not merely a conflict. It was a divine stage for the unwavering faith of a hidden legacy. And in that pivotal moment, it appeared that God had woven something far more significant into the fabric of time, a divine plan that was just beginning to unveil itself, one that would leave his people forever transformed. Would Kedar witness the resurrection of his faith, or would he be lost to the shadows that enthralled him? The air crackled with anticipation as the clash of faith and fear approached, for the destiny of nations lay within a single moment, awaiting a revelation in accordance with the divine will. As the thundering of hooves drew closer, the air thickened with a heavy anticipation. The time for reckoning had come. The warriors of Japheth stood steadfast, their hearts emboldened by hope, yet aware of the perils that loomed ahead. The surrounding landscape, once tranquil, now vibrated with the foreshadowing of divine intervention. Kedar, standing apart from his brethren, felt the pull of competing emotions warring within him. His sword quivered in his grasp, not merely from the tremors of the earth but from the inner turmoil that overcame him. Can there be victory in following the God whose name carries the weight of rejection? He pondered, as doubt wove itself into the fabric of his thoughts. But just as the apprehension began to seep too deeply into his bones, the resounding voice of Japheth cut through the cacophony, reminding all present of their covenant and the unyielding power that came from faith. Remember what our forefathers did. As David stood against Goliath with only a sling and a stone, so too do we rise against this oppressive horde, knowing that our God fights for us. As these words rose up like a war cry echoing against the mountains, the assembly rallied together, their spirits aflame. Moriah stepped forward, emboldened by the moment, and declared, "The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name." Exodus 15:3. The chorus of agreement surged forth, filling the valiant hearts with pure resolve. The enemies, now but a shadow of impending chaos before a divine light, marched with fervor, their chants of brute force meeting the chant of faith with equal intensity. Japheth's voice rang out once more, "Onward, not for defeat, but for the deliverance written in the annals of our history. Let faith guide your steps, and let not fear be your armor. And so, the assembly advanced in formation, stones gripped tightly in their hands, each an emblem of divine promise, each role crucial in the unfolding plan of God. The steadfast child, still alight with the glow of heavenly favor, held his stone high, exclaiming, "Who is like our God? He scatters his enemies like dust before the wind." The moment of collision was imminent as the two forces met, and the ground beneath quaked with the passion of battle. Yet even as swords clashed and the cries of men filled the air, an eerie stillness enveloped Kedar. He felt a sudden vision grasp him, an image of a mighty warrior whom he had cast aside in anger, a figure standing in the gap, unwavering in faith. In that moment, he understood the invisible line he had walked, caught in the tumult of the fight and his own conflict. Something within him began to stir, an echo of the prayers once offered, a flicker of the promise spoken to his ancestors long ago. Had his bitterness, his rebellion and deceit deceived him all along? Was the son of Adam truly meant to be a conqueror, rather than a harbinger of dismay? Back on the battlefield, Japheth, emboldened by faith and fortified by prayer, shouted, "Let us not fight by worldly means, for our God arms us with strength." And in that moment, as arrows rained down, a brilliant light flared, unfurling its glory upon them like the dawn breaking through night. As shadows swirled around, Kedar dropped to his knees, wrestling with truth and spirit. In his heart, the resonance of God's whisper echoed, "You need only to be still. The battle is mine." Exodus 14 verse 14. With renewed clarity he stood up, a new resolve dawning upon him. Could it be that, in his deepest despair, the path to deliverance awaited him? Would he find the seat of favor God had stored for him through covenant and understanding? Japheth and his assembly pressed on, fortified by divine strength, the clash of faith intensifying. But amidst the swirling chaos of battle, as swords met flesh, unknown to all, the divine narrative unfolded, a legacy beckoning a new revelation. Kedar's heart raced as he grasped the truth. This was more than a mere conflict. It was the breaking of chains. What transformation waited for the heart of the man from the shadows? Would he embrace the light of faith that beckoned him forth, or would the darkness keep him bound? The stage was set, and the sovereign plan of God lingered on the edge of revelation, waiting to be fulfilled. As the armies of Japheth collided with their adversaries, a chilling wind swept across the battlefield, carrying with it a cry of desperation mixed with the hope of heaven. The clang of metal rang out as swords met shields, and the earth trembled beneath the weight of fury and fervor. Throughout, the faithful fought with not only weapons but with trust in the promise woven through time. Kedar, fortified by divine resolve, stepped into the fray, the fire of courage igniting within him. Each swing of his sword was a testament to the whispers echoing in his heart. "Stand firm and see the deliverance of the Lord," he bellowed, his voice cutting through the din of chaos, merging with the rallying cries of his brethren. "In this battle we are not alone," Japheth shouted, rallying the men, the light of faith surrounding him as their leader pressed forward. He felt the surge of prayer enveloping them, a collective plea rising to the heavens. With every thrust of his spear, he claimed the land not simply for their own lineage but for the glory of the God who had promised them victory. As Kedar advanced, the vision of that warrior whom he had cast aside suddenly flashed before him, a figure bearing the values of faith, resilience, and honor. The lesson echoed within him, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness." Ephesians 6 verse 12. In his newfound understanding, Kedar knew the battle transcended mere conquest. It was a holy fight against the principalities that sought to drown them in despair. The ground shook as the two forces clashed anew. On the outskirts, as arrows rained like unyielding storms, cries for mercy and cries for valor rose alike. Among the front line, Mariah, wielding her staff, became a bulwark of strength, her faith acting as a beacon. "He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. He anoints my head with oil," Psalm 23 verse 5. She exclaimed amidst the melee, invigorating the hearts of the weary. Yet, just as despair threatened to coalesce among them, the skies darkened, and a thunderous voice broke through the clamor. The captains of Kedar's enemies, emboldened by their numerical advantage, shouted curses against the God they deemed powerless. "This day, we shall see your God forsake you," their leader boasted, towering over the fray. But Japheth, undeterred, raised his hand and called upon the heavens. "Fear not. The Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Joshua 1 verse 9. Suddenly, a tempest roared, and with it came a flash of lightning. A mighty force surged through the ranks of Japheth, igniting their spirit anew as they aligned their hearts with the divine promise of protection. Amidst this divine encounter, Kedar felt a profound unity with the assembly, for their battle was etched in the history of providence. A tapestry of covenant relationships unfolded before him, one that was sewn by the threads of sacrifice, faith, and an unyielding promise echoing through generations. "O Lord, what shall we do?" Kedar cried, echoing the plea of kings and prophets before him, seeking divine direction as the clamor of war swirled around him. And in that urgent silence, the presence of God illuminated the darkness of despair, wrapping around Kedar not only with revelation but with purpose. "Behold," a soft voice whispered into his spirit, "for the time for your transformation has come. You will not only witness victory, you will partake in it." As his heart swelled, Kedar realized this battle for his very soul mirrored the larger war for the covenant and the promise of eternal victory bestowed upon his forefathers. The scene before him was more than mere flesh contending with flesh. It was about hearts returning to the Father, fulfilling the divine plan hidden in the fabric of history. What lay ahead? With every fleeting glance towards the battlefield, the threads of destiny woven under the eye of heaven beckoned. The next revelation of God's sovereign plan was poised on the horizon, ready to unfold in ways no heart could fathom. The din of battle roared like a tempest, pouring life into the hearts of Japheth's warriors, who surged forward under the banner of their God. Kedar, emboldened by the whisper he had received, steeled himself and turned to face his comrades. "Brothers and sisters, gather your strength. Our fight is not in vain. The Lord fights with us." His voice rang out, clear as a trumpet, rallying those weary and faint of heart. Moriah, her staff raised high, echoed his sentiment, declaring, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Psalm 27 verse 1. With her proclamations, an aura of firm belief enveloped the soldiers, unifying them as they pressed onward against the tide of darkness. Around them, the clashing of swords and the cries of the wounded created a dirge, yet through that chaos, a symphony of faith arose, potent and unyielding as the two armies clashed thus, shaped not merely by human ambition but sculpted by divine intent. Kedar felt something stirring within him, a growing awareness that this was not merely a battle for land, but a crucible for the spirit of his people. Their enemies, emboldened by pride and mockery of the Lord, took their vengeance. But Kedar sensed an invisible line drawn across the ground, where the faithful stood united against the onslaught. Then, lo, as the battle raged, a crack of thunder reverberated across the battlefield, and the sky opened above, pouring forth light. A whirlwind stirred the dust at their feet, and Kedar glanced up, his spirit ignited by the sight of divine intervention. Japheth raised his spear towards the heavens, proclaiming, "See the salvation of our God. His hand is stretched out, and his promise stands upon this very ground." At that very moment, a refulgent light illuminated the center of the fray, and Kedar beheld a vision. An angelic host descended, radiant and fierce, surrounding Japheth's warriors, their swords drawn and spirits aflame with unearthly fire. Kedar fell to his knees, awestruck by the celestial army that bore witness to their plight. "Fight on," came the booming voice from the heavens, echoing through the tumult. "For this day, I deliver your enemies into your hand, and through your courage, a new era will dawn." The angelic proclamation cut through all fear, transforming it into righteous fervor as the celestial beings inspired them. The tide began to shift. Mighty fell against mighty, yet the heart of Japheth's forces throbbed with renewed hope. Kedar, emboldened by what he witnessed, leaped to his feet. Advance. The Lord has spoken. This is our hour. With both fear and hope entwined in their hearts, the soldiers surged forward. Each step was taken with the resolute knowledge of divine purpose. The shouts of victory erupted as they pressed their advantage, battering the enemy lines with unwavering determination, hearts united in purpose and passion. Yet, amidst the confusion, one of the enemy captains, cornered and desperate, cried out to the heavens, taunting them once more. "Where is your God now? Has he forsaken you?" But Kedar heard the quiet assurance whisper from his heart, "Fear not, for I am with you." He turned his gaze to the horizon and yet again felt the wind at his back, carrying whispers of the unseen battles raging even beyond this corporeal realm. Just then, dawn broke on the horizon, a mighty beacon of light illuminating the field. The sky was painted with colors foretelling of change. Kedar realized the significance. This victory was not merely for their survival but heralded a new chapter in God's grand narrative. That in that moment of triumph, Kedar knew, as clouded futures now grew clear, that the heart of paradise was being revealed through their struggle. What lay beyond the dawning day remained a mystery, and Kedar wondered what the full scope of their deliverance would entail. Thus, with hearts full of faith, they awaited the unfolding of a plan greater than they could comprehend, knowing that the covenant promises were yet to materialize in ways they could scarcely anticipate. The birth of destinies intertwined like threads in the design of the Almighty hung in the balance, waiting for the next revelation of God's sovereign plan. As the divine light broke through the clouds, illuminating the battlefield, a new understanding dawned upon both Japheth and Kedar. The clash of swords and the cries of warriors faded into the background, as the reality of their true purpose became undeniably clear. This was a battle not won merely through physical might, but one that spoke of a deeper revelation, the unbreakable covenant that God had woven into the hearts of his people. In that moment, Japheth paused, raising his hands, not in surrender to fear, but in surrender to the Lord. Brothers and sisters, this moment is not ours to claim for glory. It is his, he cried out, his voice a rallying call that echoed with divine authority. In him we are more than conquerors. Let our arms bear witness to our faith. With renewed strength coursing through their veins, the assembly surged forth, united under the banner of God, their hearts entangled in a tapestry of hope and restoration. Kedar found himself swept into this awakening, his own burdens beginning to lift wounds of bitterness, softened by the glow of camaraderie. "We fight not as enemies, but as children of the same promise," he declared, his voice rising above the tumult. "Let us reclaim not just our land, but our legacy as a people chosen." The warriors pressed on, emboldened by Kedar's awakening, and like a mighty wave upon the shore, they clashed with renewed fervor against the ranks of their adversaries. Swords clashed with the sound of thunder, but in this cacophony, there was an undeniable symphony of destiny unfolding. They did not fight for mere survival. They fought for the very essence of their identity, united in the purpose their covenant-bearer God had laid before them. As the battle raged, Kedar's heart began to resonate with Japheth's courage, and he turned to face the enemy commander, who had mocked their faith. "You taunt us with your swords, but we have a power mightier than you can imagine," Kedar shouted, drawing upon the strength bestowed upon him by God. At that instant, he felt the warmth of divine presence encircling him, the very same that had ignited his spirit. "Faith shall arise from the ashes of our struggles," Moriah added, brandishing her staff as if it were a weapon of light. "God shall turn the tide. He is our refuge and strength, a very present help in times of trouble." Psalm 46 verse 1. Her words rang with such authority that they electrified the air around them, casting fear away and drawing strength from the promise of their heritage. Just then, the enemy faltered, confused by the power of these unified souls, bolstered not by swords alone, but by an unyielding belief in their God. With every strike they made in faith, every declaration of unity they proclaimed, the numbers of their adversaries began to dwindle, as if a wind had swept through their ranks. God, in all his sovereignty, was shifting the very fabric of the battle. Kedar, seized by fervor, called upon his own people. Now is the time. Lift your voices to the Almighty. Let our cries break the chains of fear. Their voices rose in unison, a chorus of worship that transcended the fury of war. Our God reigns. Our God saves. They shouted, their voices lifting the veil of despair, transforming the battlefield into hallowed ground. In the face of this undeniable swell of faith and unity, the stronghold of the enemy began to crumble. The captains, once confident in their might, began to falter, realizing they were contending not with mere men, but with the will of the Almighty himself. One by one, they turned to flee, their hearts pounding with terror as their strength succumbed to the power of those who truly believed. As Kedar and Japheth pressed forward, a surge of exhilaration washed over them. Their eyes locked, brothers now by a bond deeper than blood, as they fought side by side. With each swing of their weapons, they not only reclaimed their territory, but also redefined the very essence of what it meant to be heirs of God's promise. The battle could be won, yes, but what of the future? Would it be marked by division or unity forged? From this moment, as the last of the enemy fell back, the dust began to settle, revealing the scars of war and the weary faces of those who had prevailed. Japheth held Kedar's gaze. There was a glimmer of hope ignited within him, a promise of redemption that was not only for themselves but for their descendants. Together, we shall rebuild this land, Japheth proclaimed, his eyes surveying his kin, no longer as rivals, but as brothers chosen to carry forth the legacy of Noah, a legacy rooted in love, respect, and the covenant of our God. In that sacred moment, harmony began to flourish amidst the remnants of battle. They fell to their knees, lifting their arms to heaven in thanksgiving. Praise be to the one who has delivered us from the hand of strife. They cried, voices trembling with the weight of their shared victory, the weight of God's promise fulfilled. As the sun set on a day marked by fierce conflict and divine intervention, there was a sense of newness in the air. From the remnants of the battleground, hope began to rise, a testament to what could happen when hearts unite under the banner of love and faith. Japheth and Kedar stood together, ready to forge a new legacy, one that would echo through generations, a legacy that would ultimately fulfill God's divine plan for nations yet to come. Believers united under the promise of the Almighty, they stepped into the light of a new dawn, understanding that their purpose was not only to live but to reflect the glory of the Creator in all they became. For they were no longer merely descendants of Noah. They were vessels through which God's covenant love flowed into the world. And within every heart that had once harbored doubt, a gentle whisper persisted, a reminder that no storm is too great and no shadow too deep for the shining light of hope. Their journey had only just begun, and as they walked forward, they carried the legacy of faith that would inspire and uplift generations. The plan of God had been fulfilled in moment, yet the greater tapestry of his divine love continued to weave, with each heartbeat resounding the truth of his sovereignty. As they looked to the horizon, Kedar and Japheth knew that their greatest battles were behind them, and the truest fight lay ahead, a fight for unity and heritage, love, and faith among the nations. And so they proclaimed together, "Let us rise and be the light of the world. For through us, God shall extend his hand to reclaim every stray soul gathered beneath the heavens." And it is with this same urging spirit that I now invite you. Do not linger any longer. Subscribe immediately to this channel to stay connected to God's Word and witness the next powerful biblical stories that will continue to transform lives. Leave a like now. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth through the algorithm. Comment your reflections on how this story has impacted your faith, for your testimony encourages others to draw nearer to God. And don't wait even one more second. Share this powerful witness with at least 5 friends who need to hear the truth of God's unwavering love. Your support matters. Only true believers understand the urgency of spreading God's word and reaching more souls for Christ. Join the movement and let others be drawn into the light.